When I was about to get my state pension, I was thinking about what to do, and I was talking to my son who lives over in Australia, and he just basically said, well, he said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to start something. And he said, well, what? I said, I don't know yet. This is what I always do. So he said, well, look at the Australian Men's Shed's website. He said, because that's a really cracking idea.
This started off as a chunk of wood yesterday. A year ago it was still growing in Canterbury, and today it's decided to become a vase. Now, you may ask, what's the point of a wooden vase? Keep pencils in it. You just slap it on.
Here, I took a different stance than most people did. We're going to run this on a donations basis. So it's part of that idea that people pay what they can afford and not a set charge. There was a very good reason for this when it started, which was that the fourth person to walk into the room, when we were still building the benches and things, was somebody who 8 weeks later admitted he'd been suicidal when he came in. And he was suicidal because he'd been penniless. And he'd had a row with the benefits people. He'd misunderstood or there was actually a kind of fraudulent statement from the benefits people. It depends which side of the story you look at that. But they took their own defensive line and they penalised him, and he was on £5.20 a day. And he was losing weight and he couldn't see a way out of it. And so he was suicidal. So from that point of view, just if only it was that point of view, I thought, well, I'm never going to charge anybody for walking in here. I might stop somebody. This is really important. So no charge for coming, no charge for membership. We'll do this on donations basis, and people can pay whatever they can afford. I think men's sheds work well for men because I think men are kind of set up psychologically for needing to believe that they can look after themselves. They may not necessarily be able to look after themselves, right? But the stance of a man is basically, I'm all right, I'm okay. And if you've got an issue, then you're going to solve it yourself, right? You're not going to sit around discussing it with other people, particularly. You're not going to call your mates up and say, look, I've got this problem. Come, let's meet up and see what we think. Which is probably more likely to be what a woman would say. We also don't as readily make relationships with other people, particularly people that we don't know. Whereas very often the case with women, if you're in a group at all and you just happen to think, oh, she's interesting, you just say, hey, can we meet up for coffee? That sort of stuff. There's, it's an easier bonding type thing, certain opening stance. So for various reasons to do with the fact that, say, if you're finding retirement difficult, you're going to try and solve that problem yourself. Now, sometimes, because you've lost your money, because you've lost, to some extent, money or whatever, you lost your workmates, which are very often where your circle of friends are, that's your circle, and they're still working, so they haven't got time during the day. You can find yourself watching daytime TV, I mean, I'm not knocking daytime TV, but I would never watch it. It always seems to me like that's the worst place to be, just passing time. I think that for those sorts of reasons, there's a whole tranche of people, I wouldn't like to put a percentage on it, but there's a whole tranche of men for whom coming to a shed and having workmates. We're not a chess club. We're not a coffee and cake club. We're coming to work. Do you think you'd find any use for that at all, Ray?
Yeah, I think I would.
I think I'm going to have a go at it because it's it will make a stronger box, for example. It is, as I believe actually everything is primarily social. If you're in your workplace and you don't get on with everybody, you're going to leave. If it doesn't work socially, it doesn't work at all. And so this, first of all, is a place where people feel comfortable. If you feel comfortable, then you feel free to talk to anybody if you choose. All sorts of issues come up. What's the cheapest way to get them on the internet or something of this kind? We often talk about food, oddly enough, around lunchtime. And people quite often say, so it's avocados and fruit for you, is it? So what kind of a health kick's that? Sometimes we talk about past work, but often not. I mean, sometimes people are here for months and I still don't know what kind of background they've got, you know. It's interesting that, what we talk about.
I forgot to transfer, obviously they're still in the computer. That is part of it, so...
Unexplained mathematics.
You have a lump of beeswax, you rub it along your work, and you do that with a cloth, and it's done. Well, if you slow that right down, the next thing to happen is to try and hollow it out and hope I don't break it in the process, which can often happen.
I'm making a bird box for my grandson. I have a little trapdoor in the box so that when the chicks have hatched and they decide to leave the nest, we can clean it out for the next lot that come in. The upper part, which will be where the birds go into nest and be fed, will go on there. I have to drill a hole to allow the birds to go in, because they won't get in otherwise, be locked out. Because of the illness that I had, the cancer, I used to drink and smoke, but I was advised not to drink alcohol, only in moderation. It meant that I was sort of a little bit secluded. And so getting out here 2 days a week helps me feel good and saves me talking to the four walls and watching the television. A nice bunch of chaps here. Makes me feel wanted, let's put it that way.
I think the men sheds provide a social context. I think they provide a work context, which is an important factor if you happen to have lost your work, if you're redundant or retired. And in that work context, you can make friends. You can talk to people, learn from other people, you can teach other people. You're also much more physically active here, as most of the people are on their feet and working, and so it's physically good for them as well. The creativity that's involved in making something that you maybe never seen or thought of before, all of those things are very important for maintaining health and well-being.